Hello and welcome to PHI103 Informal Logic. My name is Chris Foster and I'm going to walk you through the course very briefly today. First of all, what is informal logic? Logic is the study of reasoning. It's about how we derive conclusions from other pieces of information. In other words, when we make inferences. Informal logic is the study of reasoning as it occurs in daily life. We might use reasoning to decide what we think is true and false. We might use reasoning to decide what we think is the best course of action. So it's a very important thing to study. So I'm going to go over the course and talk a little bit about some interesting elements. Week one, we talk about a unit of reasoning called the argument. An argument in logic is not a fight. It's basically a series of premises, which are statements, that are used as evidence for another statement called the conclusion. We put arguments in week one into standard form, which is you list the premises very clearly above the conclusion. It's the clearest way to express an argument. It makes it easier to evaluate them. There's one thing that you might notice that's a little different in PHI103 than most courses is there's a learning activity. Let's take a look at it. This is a learning activity. There's a learning activity every week. It's in a software called Amplifier. So you're going to click on that. I'll show you what it looks like. You get to answer a series of questions. You can answer them by clicking once without confidence and then find out what answer you get, or you can click twice to answer with confidence. And turns out in this case, I was sure, but I was incorrect. Not to worry. Every 8 questions, it gives you instruction about the things you missed, and then you get a chance to answer more questions so that every question you missed, you can answer that same question or a similar question and then get it right with confidence. So once you've gotten all the questions in the module correct with confidence, you get 100% on the activity. So it's kind of awesome. Now let's talk about some other things in the course. Now, week 2 is a tricky week. We talk about something called deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is a very strict kind of reasoning. Deductive arguments strive to be something called valid. And what that means in a valid argument, the reasoning is so strong that if the premises were true, the conclusion would have to be true as well. It's very strict. It's very difficult to make an argument in a valid form, but in the discussion this week, you get a chance to just give it a shot. It's okay if you're not perfect or it's still a little confusing. You just do your best and you learn a little bit about how to use deductive reasoning. Week 3, we talk about something called inductive reasoning, which is a little bit easier. The premises aren't trying to prove the conclusion conclusively. They're just trying to give evidence for the truth of the conclusion. In week 3, we'll talk about 5 common inductive inference types and how to evaluate them. There's an assignment here in which you explain the argument given in scholarly sources on each side of your topic that you've chosen. You will read the source and then present what you see as the argument they give on one side of your topic, and then another source on the other side and present that argument, and you evaluate both arguments. Week 4, you get to talk about fallacies, biases, and rhetoric. Fallacies are basically bad arguments, but they're common types of bad arguments. It's fun to learn them because you'll start to notice them in daily life all the time. Biases are like habits of thought that can lead us astray. Common bias you might have heard of is confirmation bias. So it's tricky to overcome cognitive biases, but learning about them can help. Rhetoric is the use of language to persuade, and that can be good or it can actually be very misleading. So studying rhetoric helps us to notice and avoid it or use it. Finally, week 5. Week 5, you talk about how to apply logic to daily life, like how you might better manage your finances. There's also a quiz, which is a comprehensive quiz, and then a final paper. In the final paper, like the week 3 paper, you argue on both sides, but in this case, you'll use premises from more than one scholarly source on each side. And then after evaluating those 2 arguments, you'll give your own argument of what you think of as the solution to the issue. So it's a lot. There's a lot going on. This class is not easy. This is sort of like, I call it mental boot camp, right? But I hope that the skills are valuable, not only for your education, but for your life. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.